Imagine a move so bad that it keeps golfers plateaued at the same handicap for 10, 20, or even 30 years. And what's really shocking is that for every one guy there is on tour, there's probably 10 more guys who are almost at the level to be on tour, but they have this one issue. So in this video, let's get into the #1 swing killer. So I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking at first, I'm going to be talking about steep and over the top today. But what keeps good players on a plateau and terrifies tour players is the idea that their club head is going to come down, not over the top, but a little bit more of the opposite of that, where it gets trapped behind the handle in a condition a lot of people will call stuck. And really getting stuck is why you see a lot of tour players today with their club heads and so many videos on YouTube about making sure that you keep the club head outside the hands on the takeaway. So you end up with open face pushes and blocks, and then you start to learn how to flip the club face, and then you start getting the duck hooks too. The path is too far in to out, there is no face control, and often start to hit a lot of drop kicks, so there's not a lot of low point control either. So this is a major issue that a lot of golfers, including pros, have a very, very difficult time getting out of. So of course the $1,000,000 question is, what is the cause of getting this club stuck like this? Because we can't really fix it until we know what the cause is. What are the moves that cause the club handle to get jutted out like this with the head of the club trapped behind? But then we can do some of the opposites and we can figure out how to fix it. Now, I recently had a revelation. I've never heard any other golf teacher talk about this before. So you're going to get what I think is some real in-depth analysis of what causes golfers to get stuck and therefore go into the blocking and hooking syndrome that keeps you from really playing at your best. And that is this. I think you will get stuck when you try to come in from the proper slot, or what you might say, shallow and from the inside, while your body is out of position or not in position to support that angle. If I were to stand up, and this is going to cover a lot of you out there who have the club kind of trapped behind you like this. If I'm coming down and I stand up, well, the only way I'm going to be able to match this is two different ways. Either I can, because all of a sudden now my hands are further from the ground. So I'm going to have to make an adjustment one way or another just to cause the club to strike the ball in the sweet spot, because now my measurement is off. How a lot of lesser skilled golfers handle it when they stand up is they get the plane more vertical and outside in, therefore they come over the top. And you hit shots like that, which might work okay for short irons, but as the clubs get longer, the ball starts to peel right. But it is the only solution, or one of the only solutions you can make for once you stand up, is to come over the top and very steep and vertical. However, once golfers start trying to get good and they start trying to march their handicap down into the single digits, they know that steep and over the top can't hit the ball far enough, slices it too much generally to play better golf. So they start pursuing getting that club to come more from the inside and shallow. So now all of a sudden you're taking a plane, it's a little bit more horizontal than vertical. So a little more of like a laid down hula hoop or Ferris wheel. But now all of a sudden, and here we go, there's our stand up, and now we're shallow in the slot. The problem is now that I don't have enough vertical to hit the ground. So what I'm going to have to do here, if I stand up, I'm going to have to pair it up with another move. I'm going to show you this. So as I either drive my weight to right field, which causes me to stand up, that's usually the cause. In order to get down to the ground now, I'm going to have to do more side bend. See, now I can reach the ground, but look what happens to the club if I do the combination of those two things. I'm going to stand up. Now, if I side tilt, I can get the club down to the ground, but now the handle is going to be dropping too vertically down early in the swing. Of course, I'm not going to be able to go horizontally with the curve of the handle around me because both of my thighs and my entire pelvis are occupying that correct track now. I'm going to have to invent a new handle path into the ball here. So here we go. Stand up, side tilt. Now I can get down to the ground pretty good. I might hit behind it a little bit, but now that I'm vertical early, now I have to go out to the ball. In order to make a collision, I can't go down here forever. I'll just hit my foot. So I go down early, and then I have to go out late. So this handle is now working out to right field without a lot of curve going to it. So we can't ever get kind of this fulcrum effect, this whipping effect of the handle turning left and whipping the club around. So you can try to apply, trying to uncock that thing as hard as you can. It feels like you're muscling up on it, but you can never get the club to come around to square up. It always ends up this way or this way. So the handle's still pretty tall, but what's worse is it's heading out to right field. So I am gonna push that thing way out to the right. Of course, if you're smart or you're athletic, you know you don't want to go that way. So I'm gonna get myself stuck again. I'm gonna shift my weight to right field, causing my pelvis to go over my toes. Now I'm out of balance. I would fall forward unless I start to raise up the head up and back. Now I'm back in balance again, but I can't reach the ground. Not on a shallow plane. So side tilt, drop the handle down, coming at it this way. But now I'm gonna learn how to start flipping. So here we go. There we go, it's a toe hit, but I made it hook back to center. Problem with this is, as you start flipping it, let's go into that stuck position again. Tall, side tilt, and oh boy. So now I've got the closed face hook going on. I was just a 9-iron, that went, wow, OB left. Imagine, multiply that by a driver loft, and you got a snap hook right into the ground. All right, so now that we've seen the most common cause of golfers getting stuck, you can understand why now it would be so difficult to get out of this, is because it's so hard to diagnose, and I've never really heard this description of it before. It's the golfer's attempt to come shallow and from the inside while their body is not in position to support that. So what we've got to do first, we've got to make sure we get a lot better at that standing up mode. So whatever you've got to do, whether you use the chair like I've done in a lot of videos, or you can concentrate on the ground force, we simply have to keep this initial bend that you started with that address a lot better. So you cannot let your pelvis come forward, you cannot let your head come up and back more than just a little bit. You don't have to be perfect at it, but the better you can get at it, the less stuck you're going to get. So now that you've maintained this, now you can come shallow from the inside, and you don't need the side bend to get back down to the ball anymore. So that is now out. And now the arms can much more easily drop out in front of you, like that. So look at that club just naturally wanting to drop kind of outside my hands like this, because I am simply keeping my butt back and not allowing this excessive early side tilt now to start to govern the swing. Now a second pattern of movement I can also see causing someone to get stuck, and that would be just the moving the shoulders too shallow. So for example, we see this a lot in some Hall of Fame golfers. Like Bobby Jones is a great example of a golfer who comes out of this just fine. It just shows you that it's not necessarily a backswing issue. You can come out of it if you have the right transition move, but imagine I was to turn my shoulders very flat. Okay, now that club's way on the inside, just very naturally. I can pose here, but it really is sucking to the inside because my shoulders are turning too much like a merry-go-round. So I'm here. Now, I'm staying down, but now the only way I can get back down to this probably is going to be going back into that kind of shallow side tilted position. And I'm right back in the same position again. So If you are one of those people who goes back a little bit inside because the shoulders are flat, well, you could just steepen them. You just take your left shoulder. It's out of position, it's too high and around, but you just dig it back down and left, feeling like your right shoulder's coming a bit over the top, and you can actually do a little under the plane and loop back to the plane move, something like this. So I took it back this way, and yeah, I had a bit of a wobble in the wheel here, but that's how Bobby Jones and a lot of other people would get out of this slight flat turn, where a lot of pros are so terrified they're going to get stuck from here. But you can just do this move and get that left shoulder really digging, and the club will fall right back down in front of you again. So obviously, besides keeping this initial posture, remember the hip flexion is getting most of our bend down to the ground. The knees, yeah, halfway in the downswing, they might have a little bit of flexion like this, but predominantly it's in the hips. So we also got to make sure that the shoulders don't get too flat. Yes, you can come out of it, but better yet, not to get so deep into it in the first place, right? So rather than turning this way, where the club goes naturally in, if I was to turn a little bit more and add a little bit more vertical to blend out the turn, more this way instead of this way, well, now the club can stay in front of me a little bit easier, the arms can stay in front of me, and it's a lot easier getting my left shoulder into that correct position. So here I'm going to show you more of a tilt to the shoulders, which of course, as you stay bent over, that perpendicular to that bent over position is also going to be a little bit more vertical shouldered too. So it kind of feeds off of itself. So something like this. And there you can drop into the slot nicely unstuck. What happens now is that club face starts coming in so square to the arc. Now you can approach the ball from inside, but now since the handle is now not heading out this way, it's now curving around and turning left prior to impact. Now we can get that club face coming in square to the arc, exiting square to the arc, and we don't have to manipulate the face this way in order to get the ball straight. That is playing with fire. There's a lot of people in the Hall of Fame who played with a little bit of it, but ideally you'd like to have that club face tracking square to the arc. And so the closer you can get to that, the better a golfer you're going to be. Something you would call rate of closure. So I think the all-time best ever measured at rate of face closure is Jim Furyk. His club face was as close to being square to the arc around the arc. So while he was extremely unorthodox throughout the rest of the swing, it just shows you takeaway in the backswing don't mean much, but when the transition starts, that's when you really got to get serious about having good motions. More tilt to the shoulders. Don't drop into this position on the way down. You can't drop into this and rock the shoulders this way, but come right back down the same way you went back while maintaining that forward hip bend. Do one more here. Maintain the hip bend and put some steepness in the shoulders. And you can hit straight shots without having to manipulate the club face through the impact zone too much. All right, give these moves a try. Try them on a small scale first. You can just take a small club and hit small swings and just prove it to yourself that you'll stop blocking it almost immediately, even on a small scale. You can start with hitting a 9-iron 50 or 100 yards, and I bet that you start moving away from the pattern of blocking, pushing, and hooking, and I bet your dispersion comes in by at least 50%. I've seen it many times before. All right, as usual, I am Steve. Check out my website, hititlonger.com. Email me if you need further help, or leave a question down in the comments below. Like this video if you got some value out of it. And as usual, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.